boys and girls, and welcome back to Library Class with Mr. S. I hope everybody's having a good week, and I hope you're all excited about spring break, which is only a couple of days away. Well, because it is spring, I picked a book about a garden. It's called The Curious Garden, because Mr. S loves to garden. In fact, over spring break, Mr. S and Mrs. S are going to be building a lot of garden boxes so I can plant all kinds of things in the spring season. Now, do any of you have a garden at home? I'm sure some of you do. And if you do, are you a garden helper? Do you help weed? Do you help water? Do you help take care of the garden? If you want to tell me about your garden, then you can drop me a comment on my Google Classroom page. I would love to hear all about the kinds of gardens you guys have at home. So my story is called The Curious Garden, and it's about a little boy who lives in a city. And in the city, sometimes it's hard to find space to garden. So he does his best and he grows something amazing. We're going to check this out. Oh, it was written by Peter Brown. Written and illustrated by Peter Brown. There was once a city without gardens or trees or greenery of any kind. Most people spent their time indoors. As you can imagine, it was a very dreary place. And dreary means sad, right? Look at it. It's all brown and sad. So, it was a dreary place. However, there was one boy who loved being outside. Even on drizzly days, while everyone else stayed inside, you could always find Liam happily splashing through his neighborhood. It was on one such morning that Liam made several surprising discoveries. He was wandering around the old railway, as he did from time to time, when he stumbled upon a dark stairwell leading up to the train tracks. Now, the railway had stopped working ages ago, so there were no trains on these tracks. And since Liam had always wanted to explore the tracks, there was only one thing left for a curious boy to do. Liam ran up the stairs and pushed open the door and stepped out onto the railway. The first thing he saw was a lonely patch of color. Wildflowers and plants were the last thing he had expected to find up there, but when he took a closer look, it became clear that the plants were dying. They needed a gardener. And here they are on this lonely little patch of unused tracks. Liam may not have been a gardener, but he knew that he could help. So he returned to the railway the very next day and got to work. The flowers nearly drowned, and he had a few pruning problems, but the plants patiently waited while Liam found a better way of gardening. And if you notice, boys and girls, he's singing to them, just like Mr. S in the library at school. Not that I sing to my plants, but I certainly read to my plants, and I play a lot of music in there so the plants get to hear music. Some people believe that plants grow very healthier and better if there's music playing. So Liam is singing to his plants, and that's why I like to play music around my plants. As the weeks rolled by, Liam began to feel like a real gardener, and the plants began to feel like a real garden. Most gardens stay in one place, but this was no ordinary garden. With miles of open railway ahead of it, the garden was growing restless. It too wanted to explore. The tough little weeds and mosses were the first to move. They popped up further and further down the track, and were closely followed by the more delicate plants. Over the next few months, Liam and the Curious Garden explored every corner of the railway. And here's a couple of pages. This book has a lot of pages with no words, only pictures. So we're going to take a look at this. What do you think it's showing? I think it's showing how the garden is starting to cover over the old railway tracks. And here too. What do you think is happening on this page? Sometimes picture books are a lot of fun to look at because you can use your imagination to come up with a story for what's happening on that page. After spending his spring and summer and autumn with the garden, Liam's time on the railway was finally interrupted by winter. Heavy blankets of snow fell on the city that season, and for the first time since he'd become a gardener, Liam could not visit his plants. Rather than waste his winter worrying about the garden, Liam spent it preparing for spring. After 3 cold months, the snow finally began to melt, and Liam rolled his new gardening gear over to the railway. Winter had taken its toll on the garden, but thanks to Liam's planning and his handy new tools and a little help from the sun, the plants soon awoke from their winter sleep. And here he is singing to them again. The garden had always wanted to explore the rest of the city, and that spring it was finally ready to make its move. Once again, the tough little weeds and mosses set out first. They popped up further and further away from the railway and were closely followed by the more delicate plants. The garden was especially curious about old, forgotten things. A few plants popped up where they didn't belong. Like this one's on a stop sign and this one is on a fire hydrant. Others mysteriously popped up all at once. That looks like Liam. It looks like he's spreading his garden around the city. But the most surprising thing that popped up were new gardeners. Wow, I guess people really liked his garden, so they started making gardens of their own. And here are some pictures we can look at. I like this one because they're having a picnic. And these are very nice looking plants. And look, there's grass all the way down this staircase. Many years later, the entire city had blossomed. But of all the new gardens, Liam's favorite was back where it all had begun. And that, boys and girls, is the end of my story. I hope you guys liked it. I thought it was pretty cool, and I really liked the pictures. You guys can drop me a line on my Google Classroom page and tell me what kind of gardens you're planning to grow this spring. I'm planning to grow raspberries and blackberries and strawberries and tomatoes and peppers and eggplants and maybe something unusual. I don't know. I'll have to see what kind of seeds I can buy and what kind of garden I'm going to plant this year. But if we're still doing distance learning in the month of May and June, I will definitely show you some pictures of my garden. And even if we're not, I'll bring them to class with me and show you some of the things I've planted. Well, I hope you enjoyed this book. I certainly enjoyed reading it. And I hope you're getting outside a little bit with the new spring air here. Just remember to keep your distance from other people and to stay safe and wash your hands. So we're going to check out some books tomorrow about a holiday that's happening in just about a week. I hope you'll check back in with me. In the meantime, I'll see you later.
Here comes Peter Cottontail, hopping down the bunny trail. Look at him stop and listen to him say, try to do the things you should. Maybe